So let's talk a little bit about the Banno Digital Toolkit. There's sort of really two things about this that you should know. So philosophically, our digital toolkit is about empowering fintechs and financial institutions to work together to just build cool stuff, right? That's delivered in terms of openness through jackhenry.dev. Highly recommend you all go check that out. Go sign up for developer credentials and etc. Really trying to put as much out there in the open so that you don't have to contact a salesperson to see our API docs. You don't have to contact a particular individual that you know to get access to actual working APIs that you can go start developing against. Really trying to be philosophically as open as possible. Next, please. Mechanically, the way that this works for the digital toolkit is we've opened up our APIs, and these are the same APIs that Jack Henry itself uses to build the Banno digital banking platform. So you don't have to worry, because I know it's a really common sort of concern, a question of like, is this a weird side gig thing? Like, can the API be down for hours, days, weeks, and nobody knows or cares? Absolutely not. This is the same APIs that powers our Banno digital banking platform. So we're heavily incentivized to not let that go down, because if the API goes down, Banno itself is down, and we don't want that. We have site reliability engineers that try really hard to make sure that that's not going to happen and is mitigated should it ever happen. So what we've got on the screen here in this slide is a little bit of what that UI looks like. So if you're a user, you're an account holder, you're a member at a bank or a credit union, you have a dashboard that displays pretty common things you might expect, like your accounts, your balances, your transactions, documents, ways to contact customer support. But you've also got, that information typically displayed in a card-like UI or metaphor. So Banno has its own built-in ones, like accounts and transactions and etc. But we've opened up the API so that you, as a fintech, or you, if you're a financial institution, can create your own custom cards. And that's what Adam and Brian are going to talk about, how digital onboarding and Plinqit ended up doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, so it was about it was between 2 and 3 months, and it was not too challenging at all. We had one developer, myself, on it, and just sort of a few quick assets from our design people to sort of design it, and then not much time at all to iterate with the digital garden, because I was able to develop on my local machine and still use that garden platform. And yeah, it was quick, it was easy, and yeah, just one developer, not much time.
So it took us about 8 to 10 weeks once we started the project. We actually had not built this kind of functionality before. So it was a new piece of tech for our platform. So our developers were kind of focused on building out that aspect of it. We actually used a third party that we knew in the industry, and also was recommended by the team at Jack Henry, that already knew their documentation, really understood how to do the integration. So they helped us actually get that part of it done. But the documentation for us was super helpful, because we actually understood a little bit more about like what we needed to do in order to make that integration happen. Whereas obviously with some of the other providers, we would have had to do a little bit of more digging and a little bit more contract negotiation style stuff, like I mentioned before, to actually get access to those docs. So it's quite helpful for us to be able to build and then learn a little bit in this environment. So yeah.
From a time to launch perspective, what we're seeing is, again, roughly that a few weeks to 90 days sort of thing. That is to get you to have something that is, works at an institution, and then you can take that and reconfigure to work with other institutions. So we have many, many, many financial institutions on Banno, and that continues to grow with every passing week. So from a time to launch perspective, we have seen folks say that, it actually kind of took a little bit longer to do the marketing prep than it did to actually prepare to use, this particular configuration. And some folks have said, like, yeah, hypothetically, the same day that financial institution signed a contract with that fintech, they could have hypothetically gone live if they didn't need lead time to go into the marketing side of things, and promotion, letting people know that this cool new feature exists. Time to launch. Brian and Adam, you'll want to talk through a little bit of that and your perspective. So you've gotten through the development process and now you're eager to launch. You have rough timings on that if you're able to share?
Sure, I can jump in. For us, it's extremely quickly. As you say, most of it is coordinating with the FI when they want to launch. When they're ready, we're ready to go. And our client success person, Crystal Boyer, who's wonderful, has a little packet all set up for the FI. So they can go through their configuration steps on their end and have it all ready to go whenever they want to push the button. So yeah, it's could do same day if we're ready.
Yeah, from our perspective, I mean, our typical implementation is probably 4 to 6 weeks. And we haven't seen this really adding any additional complexity to that implementation process. It's just another step in that process for us. As Jaime mentioned, like, it's pretty easy for the FI to turn this on within their user interface, and then obviously organize where they want that card located. Really, for us, it's just coaching them on the amount of real estate we want from that card, where we'd like it located, and sort of negotiating those little pieces of it, because they obviously have other elements that they want to include within the UI. So that's probably the additional part of the process that we had to add in, but not much of a complexity from a technical perspective at all. So.
Thank you. Just going down the list of other things. So when it comes to negotiations and red tape for the Banno Digital Toolkit, one of the things that we like to tell our financial institutions that we're providing this developer platform at zero cost, zero lift to them. So what that means is, from the Banno Digital Toolkit perspective, you don't need to be, worried about, like, do I need Jack Henry's permission? Do I need their involvement? Do I need their awareness? The answer is no, you actually don't. That is between you, the fintech, and the financial institution. We have provided the platform, but they decide how quickly or not that they're willing to go live. So that's one of the things where we really wanted to empower everybody there to just move quickly and at scale without necessarily having to involve us. So there isn't any red tape from us. I'm not a lawyer. I can't speak to how the negotiations go between fintechs and FIs. Of course, that will vary. So you'll never get away from that per se, but at least you don't have to worry about a third party involved here in terms of Jack Henry for the digital toolkit. In terms of negotiations, red tape, can you all confirm or deny what I just said about Jack Henry's involvement in that?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, like we didn't have to get any permission from you guys to move forward on it. Obviously, just signed up for the developer accounts, got access to it. I mean, one of the things I kind of forgot to mention in the earlier conversation was, you mentioned Garden FI. That's honestly, like, one of my favorite parts of it is, like, we've been able to give our entire sales team an access and a user account for it. So when an FI says, like, are you integrated with Banno? And you say yes, a lot of times with another provider, they sort of have to take that on faith a little bit, or take a referral. Whereas I can actually just pull up the mobile app on my phone. I can open up my Garden FI and log in directly to the online banking and show them our integration directly on there. All of our salespeople can do that as well, and they can run a demo directly out of Garden, which is really, really cool to see, and a great different use case for how we work with our clients. And so, again, didn't need any agreement from Jack Henry to do that. Don't need any special credentials. Just logged in, got a developer account, and use that to get access to each one of our sales folks. So yeah.
Great. In terms of technical issues, like, I'm not going to sit here and claim that there will never be technical issues, because these are complex systems built by human beings. We do try not to have technical issues. And as mentioned before, it's the same APIs that Jack Henry itself uses. So we want to make sure that there aren't technical issues, because we know that can be really challenging for folks. In terms of the expense side, which the voting option was expensive, labor costs and/or platform fees. So one thing I can say is that, You don't need to learn some weird programming language that we developed. You don't need to learn one particular framework that we developed. We've tried really hard to make it so that if you've got skills in, vanilla HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and there's lots of people around the world who do. JavaScript is the most, popular language or top 2 language for a reason. That should hopefully reduce labor costs. You don't have to go find somebody who knows one particular language. And in terms of platform fees, when it comes to the digital toolkit, there aren't any. We don't take a rev share. We don't take a cut. We don't take anything at all from that. So that's freely available to you and the institutions. We don't charge for access to the digital toolkit. Adam, Brian, do you want to add any flavor here on this?
Yeah, no fees at all. Just what you need to stand up your own hosting, and yeah, nothing.
Excellent. For the security privacy concerns, so as mentioned, we have an authentication framework. It's documented on jackhenry.dev. It is based on OAuth and OpenID Connect. So we're really always looking to make sure that we're sticking as close to the standards on how those work. It's OAuth 2.0 today. We've got our eyes on OAuth 2.1 because it really simplifies and makes things a whole lot nicer and easier. So we're really trying to push the envelope on making sure that we're ensuring a really great, secure experience for you all and the financial institution and the account holders, the customers, the members, and making sure that it's based on stuff that, like, if you have experience with OAuth and OpenID Connect, it shouldn't be all that different here. And likewise, if you invested and this is your first time using those, the knowledge you gain here is transferable as skills elsewhere. Brian or Adam, you have any flavor here on those?
No, I mean, obviously would prefer to be using open standards, so we're not building something that we're never going to reuse. So, appreciate the fact that you guys are adopting those. It just makes our life a little bit easier and not having to do anything unique or bespoke for your individual client base. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was easy to use, just like you said, something we've used before and something we could use again. So it's great.
Excellent. And then rounding things out from the questions there, support and documentation. So that's sort of near and dear to my heart. As mentioned, jackhenry.dev is sort of one of those things that we've really tried to push hard on collecting information about the Banno Digital Toolkit, our enterprise solutions, our payment solutions, just really trying to put as much as possible of what it means to integrate with Jack Henry as a whole, increasingly opening that up and trying to make things as self-service as reasonably plausible. Support and documentation, Neil, talk about your experience. You touched briefly, I think, but just to put a cap on that.
Yeah, I mean, from a documentation perspective, look, I mean, you'd always want it to be more comprehensive, but I know that Jaime and team work on that pretty hard, take feedback, where they get it and sort of improve that. Also have sample code on GitHub and some of the other resources, the office hours, if we do have questions or want to learn a little bit more about what's happening with the toolkit, can obviously do those things. So, nobody's perfect, but I think you guys do an amazing job of trying to keep it as up to date as you possibly can and improve it over time. And, obviously we're learning, you're learning, and it's a good collaborative process. So.
Yeah, just bringing up what Adam said, it's really good documentation, and as I said before, where you can't find an answer in the documentation, you might find it in the Stack Overflow, and then as a last resort, emailing the developer relations. You guys respond really quickly, and where you can, I saw you personally, Jaime, take something that we discovered in an email exchange and update the documentation right there. So then it was there for the next person who needed it.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that, because we do try to publish things as soon as they're ready. The digital ink is wet, so to speak. And we do pay attention to things that we see out there in the field. We pay attention to Stack Overflow. So if we start seeing confusion, I really hope the docs are never wrong, but sometimes they are. And we do appreciate somebody points out, hey, it says this, but actually it's that. Cool. We try to update as quickly as possible and respond on Stack Overflow, hey, we just updated this thing. Sometimes we create completely new content or radically revamp existing content and example code based on any confusion or misunderstandings that there might be out there in the developer community. So we're always really trying to strive to have a really high ceiling of what's possible, but always trying to lower the floor of like, what does it take for you to be successful? So we've got examples. So our bread and butter from our engineering team here is predominantly based in Node.js, but just to be really clear, you don't have to use Node.js. If you're really into Python's stack, Golang, if you're a Microsoft .NET C# shop, you absolutely can use those as long as it speaks the language of the web, HTML, CSS, JavaScript at some point, you should be great. And where we don't have a language specific example for you, we usually try to have a like command line or do it in a way of like, if you can run through the terminal, if you can run PowerShell, that sort of thing, curl, you should hopefully be able to translate that into your stack. But we're always looking to improve that and really appreciate the nice feedback. We also, just to round things out there, we also take feedback at the monthly Toolkit meetup. So that's up to 90 minutes, the second Tuesday of the month, every month. We say, whatever questions you've got, if they're really basic, if they're really advanced, intermediate, are they really broadly applicable, very niche and narrow, that's your time to come ask questions. And we take things that we learn from there and try to make it that much easier to self-serve so that we continue to improve. So really, really appreciate your all's insight and perspective on that. Go to there you go, jackhenry.com/resources/events. I'm not saying you need to make that like your browser's homepage. I'm not saying you need to like mash refresh on that while you're having your coffee, tea, or maybe a sandwich or eating dinner, fourth meal in the middle of the night. Like, that's up to you, but at least go check it out once in a while, because not only do we post the registration events for the Digital Toolkit meetup, I mentioned the digital banking meetup for product roadmap type stuff, and there's a bunch of other things. So Jack Henry, hosts its own events like Jack Henry Connect 2023 coming up later this year, as well as we participate in other industry events. If you want to know, what's up with Jack Henry and events, this is a link you should absolutely look at.